I work at the MIS department at the University of Central Florida. What you'd really have to look at, and we can do this, is organizations that existed before we had MIS and doing pretty much what they are now. For example, a bank. Banks have been around for hundreds of years, and many of the things that banks do today, they did hundreds of years ago, but they obviously did it without computers. Well, what is it that they did? They recorded transactions, they recorded deposits. They had to do it all by hand. People had to sit down with ledger sheets and transcribe manually each and every calculation or each and every entry. And then when you did things like recording compound interest, people had to manually, and think about this, this was even taking place before adding machines, would have to add up total values in columns and then apply the interest rate and post that as an entry in the transaction. And universities, insurance companies, all of these predated MIS, predated computers in businesses. They all got done, but they were monumentally labor-intensive activities. And so without MIS, we would be doing the same thing. The change that we've seen in organizations is MIS has enabled organizations to take the people that had previously been doing really drudge level work and put them to work doing creative activities. It's had a big impact on how people's lives are led. It's had a huge impact on the lives of women because many of these low-level clerical jobs women did for a number of reasons. Now nobody has to do those jobs. We turn them over to the computers. And so what MIS has enabled organizations to do is one, shift labor to what human beings do the best, which is be creative and come up with ideas, and two, enable organizations to realize economies, to lower the costs of providing services, which in a competitive environment increases the benefits to their customers. And so all of these things have happened. And again, just take a look at any organization that existed before the advent of computers. Now, another question to ask yourself is, what does MIS do differently from computer science or computer programming? Well, MIS is where the business and the technology comes together. So our students not only are able to look at the question of what systems do we need, but we can ask ourselves why do we need them? What's the economic impact on the organization, not just what is the program artifact or the database that we need. And it also turns out that a huge amount of what we need to design requires an understanding of what the organization does. And so the MIS majors, because they've had the experience with accounting and finance and human resources and even marketing, oh my goodness, they're huge consumers of MIS and martinis. But all of that, the MIS major is able to talk to all of those functional areas, understand their point of view, and then use that to design the systems. At a higher level, though, it's not only the design and the implementation, but the economic justification, the recognition of when we've got value that we can add to the organization as a result of this change that we can make. No, I don't think so, because you've got a translation challenge there, and there's a great analogy. I think if you looked at somebody who wanted to design a house and they had an idea in general of what they needed, but they had to talk individually to the plumber and to the framer and to the concrete person and possibly even the surveyor, unless that customer had an understanding of the design principles that would cause all of those things to fit together, they would end up with a disjointed product. The drain pipe for the toilet running through the ceiling of the living room or something like that. Whereas an architect, when an architect is involved, the architects are trained in both the structural issues that control the design of the house and its engineering soundness, but also the livability issues of a structure. Even how it sits on a site and implications of that. And that's really the role that MIS plays. We understand both the goal of the system, but also the engineering behind it, so that we'll recognize in advance that if you want to do this with your system, you're going to need a more robust database because of special needs. Or you are going to need an e-commerce element to this because users of the system are not directly connected to your network. And so we're trained to consider the technical implications of organizational needs, whereas any of the more detailed participants are not. They're not trained to look holistically, and they're not trained at the organizational implications of the design.